Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.
The SparkFile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, your twice weekly grab bag for creative inspiration.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome, but you may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File? Where do I get one? What do I file in it? These are good questions, and we do have answers.
A Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all your inspirations and fascinations. And if you're like us and you're making stuff all the time, sometimes the wellspring of inspiration can run a little dry. We are here to refill it.
Yes, we're on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity, things that inspire us to get up off of our asses and make things like this podcast.
Or a Pulitzer Prize winning original musical that puts 7 queer Black principals on the stage.
Or 18 years of work, writing, rewriting, and developing opportunities for that work to be seen. Creativity of quality takes time, people.
On today's Makersode, we're going to talk with a person who truly sparks us.
And that person is Michael R. Jackson. Michael, welcome to the Spark File.
Michael.
Hey, Susan. Hey, Laura. Thanks for having me.
Michael, we're so happy that you are joining us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I hope you're still happy after I tell you what the price of admission is.
What if it's just the sound of Michael's feet, like dun 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 dun, slam. The cartoon departure. Yes.
The Spark File price of admission is, real quick, can you tell us a creative risk that you have taken recently?
A creative risk that I've taken recently is I'll tell you one. Well, it's actually 2 things. Can I tell you 2 things? Or does it have to be one?
Please. Ooh, the
Double
more
down.
the better.
So one of them was I got at the beginning of the pandemic, I got commissioned to write a short play that would be given to families and communities who wanted to do things while they were home. It was this initiative called Plays at Home. And so in one day I wrote this short play called Trees on Broadway that it was about that's about a tree that wanted to be on Broadway. And then, and the tree's mother didn't approve, and but the tree defied the odds and got on Broadway in a play called Trees on Broadway, where the character's name was Treely O'Hara. And a couple people emailed me. They actually did these plays in their homes, or more than one person people did it. And I was like, utterly shocked and delighted because I was like, I wrote this play in like 1 hour or like 2 hours, like just to like get this commission. But it like made me feel really good that like somebody somewhere like actually did this like stupid ass play, you know?
Yes, they're in their living rooms producing your play.
And the other thing was, at the beginning of this pandemic, this guy that I was seeing like totally ghosted me. And so then the Guggenheim commissioned me to do this thing for their works at works in progress thing they were doing online. And so I wrote a song about being ghosted during a pandemic. And then like,
did you name names or was it a blind?
No, I didn't name names, but then what happened was after like a month later, like when I won the Pulitzer, the guy like reached back out to like congratulate me. And we actually started, and then we started talking again. And I was like, okay, let's start talking again, but you need to hear the song that I wrote when you ghosted me. So there's like,
how did he take it?
Well, no, I was just so there was like full transparency, and he was like, and so he listened to it, and he was like, "I'm sorry that I hurt you, and thank you for like, you know, letting me listen to that song, and like, and now we're in a good space, at least as friends for now."
Oh, that's impressive as fuck. Look at everybody growing and changing. I mean, look at you processing your feelings with your creativity. Good.
I'm going to write a song. Hey,
awesome. The name is called the name of the song. If you're interested is "Your Silence," and it's on like you can find it. It's on YouTube on like the Guggenheim. If you like type that, I'm sure "Your Silence" Guggenheim, it'll probably come up. And it's me singing it. I had to like record myself singing it, which was very awkward, but I did it.
I love listening to you sing. You may have your own feelings about what that feels like on the inside.
Well, no, it's something I've had to get used to because in the very beginning of my career, I like did anything and everything to try to avoid it. And then like eventually every time I would give certain songs to certain singers or actors, it wasn't that like they did a bad job. It's just, they treated every song as though it was like a musical theater song.
Yes.
when they were really just like more personal songs. And then I was like, you know what? You just have to start singing those songs and lead them to the more like musical theater songs.
I'm just like, babe, just throw it away a little bit. Just throw it.
Just throw it away.
Easier.
A little easy breezy. Yeah.
You're just having a conversation. Just having a conversation.
Right. This just became a musical theater masterclass, everybody. Michael, you are officially admitted into the Spark File. Pyro, T-shirt cannon. We're so glad you're with us. As we all know, these are complex times. There's a lot going on. So let's start with this. It's a 3-parter. Where are you right now? How are you right now? And what's top of mind for you today?
I am in Washington Heights, New York.
Yes.
I live literally right down the street from Lin-Manuel Miranda, like 2 minutes away.
I know it well. Sure, I know exactly where you live.
I have
I'm
lived in this
outside
apartment.
your door right now. Knock, knock, motherfucker.
I've lived in this apartment for 15 years.
Yes.
And how I'm doing is I have a roof over my head, I have food in my refrigerator, I have relative financial stability, and I have my health. So I'm really good.
Yes.
Great.
And then what's top of mind for me today is how reporters can try to sabotage you, but that you have the power to circumvent their sabotage.
Oh, I want to know more about that.
Will you tell us more about how you do that?
Give us some deets.
So all I can really say about it is that a reporter really tried it today, because when there's issues happening in the theater world or Black issues or whatever, and people want your opinion and you don't really want to talk about it, they can like find ways to try to weaponize that against you. And so today so today I found myself having to become my best Olivia Pope self and like getting around, or maybe my best Jake Ballard self. Maybe I killed someone. Like I had to get around an evil white man. An evil white man tried to like put me in bondage, and I am a free Black man. and you will not put me in chains. So
there's something I learned from Laura Camion, which is they may ask you a question, but answer the question you wish you were asked.
That's right. I do that. I actually do that all the time. There's like there's a certain question I'm often asked about, and I always answer it the same way by pivoting to another thing.
Love it. What if we ask you that today?
Well,
if we ask you, will you tell us?
No, I probably won't. But like, no, I figured it out. You know, like it is, and I have to. I owe all this to like one of my saviors, Tori Amos, who is like my first inner white girl, who in interviews has talked about who said that she knows sometimes when she goes into an interview that the interviewer has already written the story the minute she walks in the door.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like I've learned a lot from her, just like reading her talking about that.
Can I guess what the question is? Can I please guess?
You can guess.
You don't have to confirm or deny, but just from my own experience from Title of Showtimes, is the question something like how much of this is based on your own experience and how much is fictionalized? Is it a question like that?
No, I love answering that question.
Oh, good. I'll be sure to ask that later. Okay, great.
Michael, for people who don't know you, here's a 2-part question. Creatively speaking, when people ask, what do you do? How do you answer that question? And what creative work are you most known for?
When people ask me what do, I say I'm a composer, lyricist, book writer, and trash talker.
Yes!
A multi-hyphenate. A multi-passionate.
I love that. Oh, that makes me joyful.
And then, wait, I'm sorry, and what was the next part?
The next one is, what creative work are you most known for?
I'm most known for my musical, A Strange Loop.
For folks who have not seen or heard the show.
What if I just stopped this interview and just sang the whole score of A Strange Loop?
Do it!
A cappella right now. I think that's what the
memory
listeners...
song again.
That would be the fastest cancellation you ever saw.
I think you might be right. These are my memories, white girl memories. Like a lot of that.
I love that memory song so much. Yeah. But for folks who haven't seen or heard the show, can you tell our listeners just about the story that it tells?
So A Strange Loop is a self-referential, I call it, musical about a Black gay musical theater writer who works as an usher at a Broadway show, who is writing a musical about a Black gay musical theater writer who works as an usher at a Broadway show, who is writing a musical about a Black gay musical theater writer who works as an usher at a Broadway show, and sort of cycling through his own perception of himself and his own self-hatred.
I feel like everyone in this conversation has created a lot of work from their own lives. In our work, we sometimes refer to it as autobiofictionography, which is a phrase that we borrowed from my writing teacher, Linda Berry. You've said that A Strange Loop is not so much autobiographical as it is, you just said, self-referential. But I have to say, Michael R. Jackson, it feels really specific and really so honest. So I'm going to ask you the question, which I'm never good at answering about my own work, which is how much of it is fictionalized and how much of it is like your lived experience?
So I guess like so there's 2 answers to that. One is that like, while I don't describe it as like autobiographical, I do describe it as emotionally autobiographical. So what that means is that there's certain things in the show that like didn't actually happen to me, but I have felt everything that the main character Usher has felt. So what I can tell you is that like when I was younger, my parents and I did have like a hard time with my sexuality and me coming out as gay. That's true. I did come from a very religious family. That's true. I did go to Inwood, to like a horrible racist white man's house and had sex with him. That is true. But that racist white man was not smoking meth, which happened in the show. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, there's like certain details that like just it just made it more interesting, or like it added a flavor or a dynamic that I wanted to have in the show. Or it even just referred to other things. So like, for example, there's a lot of Black gay men who like struggle with like around the issue of meth addiction. And so like, I just wanted to kind of refer to that in some oblique way by having the person, even though Usher himself wasn't smoking that.
That's like me in Title of Show. Like in Title of Show, my character didn't do meth, but in real life, I do tons of meth. So I feel that.
Can I just also just take a moment to say I love Title of Show so much, and I saw it under the oddest of circumstances, which is that I saw it not with Susan or Hunter or anybody else in the cast, or Heidi. I saw it in Palo Alto.
What? My God.
I did. And I fucking loved it. I thought it was like one of the most cleverest things I'd ever seen. And I just was so, and I was like, wow, they're just doing it like with a keyboard, and it's still it sounds great and it's funny. I just really like was a great, I like am a great admirer of that show and what you all did, even though I didn't get to see you in it.
Do you know who the original producer of Title of Show was and took it all the way to Broadway? Laura Camion. Co-hosted this
podcast. Congratulations. Thank you.
We both have, hey, my pleasure every step of the way, every step. My God. I just feel like we have this sort of kinship of just, like, I can't wait till we're going to ask you, about getting your work up and out and into the world. And I just feel like, it's such a unique experience trying to do that, and how much effort you commit to doing it, and just for how long. I feel like it's a bond. We're gonna dig into
people
that.
Who have pushed that rock up the hill. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Sisyphus. Yes, Sisyphus. Yes, Sisyphus.
When I dug into your story and you were talking about 18 years of work, I was like, I feel that. I feel that. Yeah. Yeah.
Michael, when we teach creativity and writing, there's an option, a choice that we offer students who are concerned about telling their truths or telling family secrets. And it's borrowed from Anne Lamott. It's the concept, write like your parents are dead. And you've given us a twist on this. You've said that because you never thought A Strange Loop would ever be produced, you could just write it however you wanted. Can you tell us like what creative freedom that afforded you, and if you experienced any consequences due to your honesty?
I don't think I had experienced any consequences, because like the other piece to, writing it as though it would never be produced was that also my parents are like extremely removed from like the theater world.
Yeah.
And like that 18 years was also 18 years of like them not coming to New York while I was like, I was going from like growing as a person and as an artist. And like, there was never any reason for me to share any of my work with them, because they just they live on like another planet almost. And so I just was like kind of in a vacuum of just like writing the show, because as I mentioned, like I didn't think it would be produced, because like I was seeing what like sort of commercial theater looked like up close. So it just gave, I was like, I don't do that. So
yeah,
I'm just going to keep doing what I do, and maybe it'll get done or maybe it don't. And I just didn't give myself a plan B.
Did you warn them in any way? Like when did they see the show? And before they came, did you say, hey, there's a couple things I should tell you?
Well, it was hard because, like, again, the show is not autobiographical, and like the thing that I kept like walking this line of like, I don't want to say too much, because then that's going to just like put all this pressure on it, and like it's going to actually ruin it. And I want them just as people, as theater goers or people who bought tickets. I mean, I didn't buy tickets; I got them tickets, but like people who were just in the theater. Like I wanted them. I just wanted them to like experience it for themselves without me like putting all these trigger warnings on it. But I did say, like, I think I said, like, there are things in the show that, that you might find, that like you might recognize about yourselves, but like they're not they're not like, it's not the show's not autobiographical. I think I said the same thing like I'm saying to you basically, but I just kept trying to warn them. I said there's adult, I think I said there's adult content. I think I definitely said that. I said there's adult content in the show. And my mom who is like actually who I learned comedy from, I think, even though she doesn't think that she doesn't think that she's a comedian or that she knows
she's got
comedy.
timing. Yeah.
But she like goes, "What? You think I'm gonna be worried because it's about a bunch of gay folks?" And I was, because my mother was like Southern and like just like a no nonsense lady, and I was like, well, that's not exactly what I meant, but while you mention it, like there are some gay folks in it. But she just was like just so excited to see what her baby was doing that like when she came to see it, she just was like, "Your name's on a marquee. It's in a big building that like is a theater, and there's all these actors on stage, and there's a set, and like there's lights, and it looks good, and it sounds good." And she just like the actual content of it, like she could give two shits about actually to some extent. Though she did like after she saw it, she was like. She and my dad were like holding court in like the lobby of Players Horizons, and they were just like, and they like were like giving like this big speech to and like this crowd just kind of naturally forms around them because everybody wanted to know like, oh my God, Michael's parents are here, and my mom was just like, Michael just used to always read. You just always used to have a book in his hand, and this production was just phenomenal. Oh, the acting and the singing and she just was like so proud. And my dad was the same way. And there was one part he should have told us about. But it was like but like they were just, but they were so proud, and like, and I was happy to just watch them. To watch them be happy. It wasn't about me. It was about they got to be proud of their child, because like for parents but like for Black parents in particular, it's like you want your children to do well, and they got to like see people seeing their child do well and like sort of soak in the rewards of that, you know, even though the show has these parents in it who are like loosely inspired by them, but aren't totally them. Like there's, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like there were things said on that stage that my mother said to me when I was like a teenager, but there's also things that I just like made up. And I think on some level they recognized that, and they just were proud of me for having followed my dream for all these years, because they saw it. They saw me struggling and writing and like ups and downs, and things I thought were going to be a sure thing was a failure, and they like still stayed behind me and were like, well, just follow your dream. And then that seeing the show was like the culmination of like all of that. And so it was like a really beautiful thing for them to see the show.
I have to say, like, I'm so happy that you had that experience, and I am so in love with them for having that response. That's the correct response, but not all parents would have that response. And I
That's
just
right.
think,
That's right.
Oh my God, it just fills my lungs with air to hear that. I love that.
I was thinking the same thing, like how generous and kind, like it sounded like they were raving about you and the show, but also so generous in their compliments to everyone who was a part of it.
Oh God, they thought the cast was great. Like they loved like all of it. They were so excited about it.
Awesome.
I think we should, it bears mentioning that if you have not listened to the original cast recording of A Strange Loop, go ahead and pause this podcast and find it and listen to it
now.
Because you are in. It's like one of those. It's like one of those shows. It's like one of those recordings where you are in for such a discovery. You are in for such a treat. It is so high quality that you're going to see why Michael's parents were as proud and bananas over it as they were, because it's undeniable. Like it's so fucking good.
It's incredible.
It's making me think when we did Title of Show, I kind of my character, I would say, is sort of a distilled version of how I am with my closest friends. And it was a version of me that, in fairness to them, my family did not really know well. And I think when they saw it, they were really stoic about the show, to the point where they just didn't say anything about it, and we all went out to eat and they didn't mention it. They just didn't talk about it. But then when the audiences started getting larger and they saw the audience response to my weirdness, it kind of taught my family how to accept me. But it sounds like your family was, I don't know, more ahead of the curve. I don't know.
Well, it's complicated because it's like my parents, like my whole like life with my parents and like our journey together and around, it's particularly around my sexuality, is like, but this is also like has to do with like my own development and my perception of myself and my perception of them and what I needed from them, is that like they still are like the same, like, you know, moderate Democrat, religious, you know, Black parents that they always were. Like, they still, like, I don't think I could comfortably say that, like, my mom, like, approves, quote unquote, of my homosexuality. And yet, she still loves me deeply. And, like, and all she wants is for me to be happy. And so, like, part of her acceptance of me, gay or not gay, is for me to own that, which is something that I didn't do for many years because I was afraid of the judgment that, like, I felt from them, from my parents, or from the community. But, like, it was when I said, you know what, I'm gay, full stop. I think my mom had, like, a lot of respect for that, even though she's still culturally the woman she always has been, which was taught that, like, homosexuality is a sin or whatever. But she never, in any of the material ways that matter in the last decade even, or since I had, like, a very important conversation with her, has never held that against me or said anything negative or homophobic or anything. But, like, she still is who she is, which I think is also part of the thing that I wanted to capture in the show, which is that Usher's mother, like, has a lot of really homophobic views, but, like, her homophobic views are complicatedly rooted in, like, a deep, like, abiding love for him, which is what makes it so difficult. I know people in my life, like, I had a relative, a distant cousin, who, when her mother found out that she was gay, she, like, kicked her out of the house.
Yeah.
And she could not move back into the house until she, like, renounced her homosexuality in front of her mother. And, like, and that was not my experience.
Yeah.
But my distant cousin did do that, and that changed the course of her life.
The thing I love about your parents' response, and parents, if you're listening, the thing I love about it is I feel like you, in making this work, you really stepped forward and you really, I don't know, you put yourself out there, you put your work out there in such an honest, forward way. And I feel like because of their ability to just be present to it and be accepting of it, super bonus that they're super proud of you. You get to know each other better. You get to deepen your relationship. You get to understand yourself even more. I feel like all little Bodies rise because of that.
That's right. I mean, we never, my parents and I have never been closer. And, like,
I love that.
And like, them seeing the show also was like, that was them seeing what I've been doing for 18 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and now, and then them seeing all of the great things that came as a result of it, it was like, oh, now we get it. And, like, the struggle he went through was, like, meant something, especially since, like, I've been able to, like, help them out a little bit as a result of it. It's like this weird, like, I'm weirdly living, like, the American dream in, like, a weird way. Even though the American dream is like totally, like, gone and dead and whatever.
You're, like, rebuilding the American dream in a new shape and form, which I love.
I want to add this one little piece, which is I'm so happy that your parents have gotten to take this ride with you to this point. And here is, I know that like our lives are fleeting and precious and tomorrow is not promised, but my hope, my wish is that you all get to enjoy and celebrate each other when this piece of theater takes it to the next level.
That's right.
I want Broadway opening nights for the Jackson family. I want.
Oh yes.
I want.
And I need to make sure that Tyler Perry is there.
Yes. All of it.
Well, because he called me.
Tell us about that conversation. What transpired?
So what had happened was the night before, a friend of mine, Jordan E. Cooper, who wrote this incredible play at the Public Theater called Ain't No Mo. And Jordan has written for television and stuff. And I guess he's friendly or connected to Tyler Perry in some way. He they were talking and my name had come up. And then Jordan called me and was like, hey, I'm going to talk to you a second. And he was like, hey, just so you know, like Tyler Perry called me and like your name came up and
it should be mentioned that you very directly refer to Tyler Perry in A Strange Loop.
I do.
Many times. Mm-hmm.
And,
many times.
And he's like, and he wanted him to give me a certain message, which I'll get to what that message was. So I was like, all right, that's fine. I said, tell him I said XYZ. So then the next day, I was on the phone with my mother, just like shooting the shit. And again, this is all during the pandemic. And like, I'm like quarantined in my room, and like, I see an Atlanta number. Oh no, I get a text that says, hey, it's Tyler Perry, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. And then like 5 minutes later, I get a phone call. Like the phone rings. I'm like, hey mom, hold on a second. And I switch over and I'm like, hello? And he's like, it's Tyler Perry. And I'm like, oh, hello, sir. How are you? And he's like, nigga, I'm going to beat your fucking ass. And I was like, and I said, I got Vaseline for my face. And he's like, I don't need any Vaseline. I'm going to punch you in the neck. And I was like, okay, well, let's go. I said, I get as good as I get. And then he goes, seriously, congratulations on the Pulitzer. And he like wanted to know about like the historical nature of the win because I was the second black man to win a Pulitzer for drama. The first black gay man to win a Pulitzer for drama. The first musical theater writer to win one without having a Broadway transfer announced. And so he wants to know about things like that. So I told him about that. And like, he, long story short, he was just kind of like, I heard you took an axe to me in the show. I didn't see it, but I heard about it. And I was like, well, if you want to listen to the cast album, it's available wherever you get music. And he was like, oh yeah, I should call up Jay-Z and see if I can get it on Tidal. And I was like, I don't know if it's on Tidal, but whatever. And then he was like, congratulated me and got the phone. And then like a couple minutes later, he texted me a screen capture of him showing that he had purchased the album on Tidal.
There you go.
And that he had, and very specifically that he had listened to the song Tyler Perry Writes for Life, which is a song from A Strange Loop. And he didn't say what he thought. He didn't say what he thought of it or anything. So I have no idea. But like that was like the phone call.
I'm telling you, Michael, when somebody writes a compendium of the weirdest fucking stories to come out of the pandemic, and you know they will, it's going to be a beautiful coffee table book. That has got to be a chapter.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Did you like immediately call your mom back and say, "Mom, that was Tyler Perry"?
I did indeed call my mother back and tell her that was Tyler Perry. And she's like, "Oh my goodness!" Because my mother loves everything that Tyler Perry does. From the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. Like, unquestioning, he is, like, there for her. Like, and I have just grown to accept that.
In other weird, fun stories, we also understand you were on the phone with playwright Brandon Jacob Jenkins talking about the Real Housewives of Atlanta when he told you that you had won the Pulitzer Prize. This isn't a question. We just enjoy the story. Good job, Brandon Jacob Jenkins.
No, I love Brandon. He's my homeboy.
I love the highbrow and lowbrow of that story.
But that's my work. That's me. That's me, and that's my work. I'm all about highbrow and lowbrow, like all the way. That's how I roll.
Favorite.
That's how I get down.
That's my favorite.
Oh, can I tell you my housewives tagline? I don't have to read because I write.
Okay. And I like to picture you just spinning. So you are facing away from the camera. You spin to the camera. You say your tag, and then you offer the camera a peach. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I guess it would depend on like if it's like an existing franchise or like a new franchise. Is it like real playwrights of New York City?
Right.
So do you offer the camera a quill? Like, what the fuck?
Right. Oh my God! Yes, we're all holding quills.
Oh my God.
Anyway, back to you.
Back to you, Michael, and the important stuff. Hey, you're in this liminal space now. We all kind of are, while we wait and see how the future will unfold. How are you exercising your creativity during this time?
Well, to be honest with you, like, outside of doing like those little micro commissions, which are like those are like kind of from outside of me. I had this other musical that I've been working on called White Girl in Danger. That I'm working with the Vineyard Theater on that.
Nice.
And you referred to that a little bit on your social media.
Yeah. And so we had a book workshop scheduled already for April, and so we just decided to do a virtual one. And that one went. I was like ambivalent about it because I was like, how is this going to work? And it actually went really, really well. And it it made me cry because I was like, oh, we still can we can still be together and do our work together. And it went really well. And so we're doing another one in July. But outside of that, to be honest with you, I haven't really been writing anything, only because I feel a little bit like this moment is about self-inquiry and reflection and sort of absorbing like what the world is, because it's such a deep shift. But, I also am like, because we're going to be doing this other workshop in July, I feel myself being pulled back into sort of creative mode for me. But I have not written anything new from myself. I only have really been writing what I already was working on.
I hear you, though. I feel that too, that this is a different kind of time in the life cycle of creativity. It's like one of those like gathering times as opposed to like producing times.
Yeah, it's like hibernation.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm jumping back to A Strange Loop. You've talked about how you felt as a younger person, that you struggled to belong, that you weren't enough, that there was something wrong with you that needed to be fixed. I think those are feelings that lots of people can relate to. When the protagonist in A Strange Loop, Usher, realizes that there is nothing wrong with him, that's when the character actually changes. And we're curious if making A Strange Loop helped you to realize that there is nothing wrong with you. And did the making of it over these years change something in you?
So it's interesting because I began writing A Strange Loop accidentally when I was about 21 years old. I was a senior at NYU studying playwriting, and I was about to graduate with a playwriting degree, and I just didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And so I just started writing this monologue called Why I Can't Get Work. And the monologue was about a Black gay man walking around New York City wondering why life was so terrible. And that ended up becoming the skeleton for what would be the book for A Strange Loop. But that's not how I intended it. And that was me trying to capture in real time sort of this feeling of alienation and unhappiness and what have you.
Yeah.
In terms of this very specific Black gay male condition. And so the show has always been that. However, I didn't have, when I was 21, any objectivity about that. I didn't have any objectivity about that when I was 22, 23, 24, 25. But the show was always about this young Black gay man sort of wondering why life is so terrible and struggling to understand himself. And so it took me, myself, sort of trying to figure out what was going on with me to be able to actually know what the form and structure of this story was. Because it was like this parallel storyline to what was in my own storyline. Yeah. And I had to capture it, but I couldn't capture it until I knew I could knew what it was, because otherwise it would just always be elusive, because a strange loop is kind of like a mirror in front of a mirror, and you're trying to see to the very back of the loop, and you'll never be able to do it. And that's what your self is like your sense of selfhood. That construction, two mirrors against each other, that is like an example of what like it is like to be a person. That like you when you try to understand yourself, it's like this endless loop of like of symbols that like make up who you are, and you kind of can assign values to what that is. And it just so happened in my own life, a lot of those symbols just added up to you're bad, you're worthless, you're fat, you're ugly, no one will love you or want to like be intimate with you sexually, or you're too black, or you're whatever the thing was. And like I had to get to a point where I had objectivity about that as a formal conceit, and that was when I was really able to begin the writing, even though I was writing the whole time and capturing different little symbols that made up what the show was.
It's so interesting because it is like a parallel path of your development, the work's development, your development, the work's development. That's sort of, they both inch forward along over time, as long as you keep putting pen to page and you keep being expressed just as a human being.
That's right.
Yeah. Was there any point along the way, just because I'm always obsessed with the projects that take a long time and that people like stick with them, because it's so easy at any point, I think, for people to be like, well, it hasn't happened. It's not going to happen. And so I'm obsessed with when I hear about stories that developed over a long time. And I'm just curious, like, what was that experience like for you? And was there a moment where you were just like, if I haven't written it yet, I'm not going to write it? Did any of that sneak in along the way?
So I guess the only way I can talk about that is to somewhat describe my development as a writer at all. So like basically I'm from Detroit. I grew up playing piano and playing for choirs, doing arts and all that stuff. But like when I went to high school, I took creative writing as my elective. And my creative writing teacher, who was also like the head of the English department, was this really amazing lady named Deborah Thompson, who, in addition to making sure that we had our creative writing class that she taught, she had partnered us with this program that was just starting in Detroit called Inside Out. And Inside Out is a nonprofit that brings professional writers and residents into the school so that students can have an outlet, but also can see writing as more than just a hobby. And I had many writers and residents who I worked with in addition to just my regular creative writing class. And one of those writers and residents was this really amazing guy named Peter Marcus. That's Marcus with a K. And he also taught these private workshops in his house in Detroit, in the downtown area. And my parents let me take those workshops with him and some other people in the Detroit area. And he was someone who first sort of pushed me to start writing outside my comfort zone, and to not just, because up until that point I was just basically kind of writing imitations of the writers who I liked at the time. He sort of had this mantra in our class, which was, fail better. And if you feel like you can't, if you don't want to write and create and whatever, just go be a banker. Meaning, like, give yourself a plan B. And basically saying to us that, like, if you really want to live this life and tell stories or whatever, or be a poet or whatever it was, like, then you don't give yourself a plan B. And he planted that seed in me. I didn't know that it would like germinate, but it did, because I, eventually sort of moved away from writing poetry and fiction, and I went to NYU to study playwriting for my undergrad, even though my plan was to be the head writer of One Life to Live, because I loved soap operas. That's why I moved to New York. Like, I was like, I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to like become a soap opera writer. But I fell in love with theater. And then that led me to grad school, which led me to musical theater. which led me to beginning to write music, even though I wasn't a composer in the program, and like that led me to starting to write my show. Like it just everything kept going along, and I had and every step of the way, I had teachers encouraging me at crucial points.
Mm-hmm.
So like, so then by the time I like was like writing A Strange Loop, it was like it just was in my blood to do it. And I didn't, and like I kept remembering Pete being like, be a banker. And I was like, I'm not gonna be a banker, I'm gonna write. Although I did take several detours. I ushered at the Lion King, I ushered at Mary Poppins, I literally went and became a finance clerk at an advertising agency. I briefly was an executive assistant at a law firm. I was an executive assistant at a nonprofit.
Did you have a crazy, challenging boss, Michael?
I had several crazy and challenging bosses.
We need to speak offline.
Yes, I remember because in your story, like actually all of those bosses had inspired another musical that I'm working on that I was commissioned by LCT3 to write. That's called Accounts Payable. So, but like, because I worked with and around the accounts payable department, and it's just high drama more than you ever would imagine. But anyway, going along the way, it was just like because I didn't give myself a plan B, even though I was like working these jobs and stuff. It was just like just keep writing it because like why not? Like there's nothing else. Like you don't have anything. Like I didn't have a boyfriend. I had my writing. You know what I mean? Like there was nothing else to default to.
That makes perfect sense.
Here's a question because, well, I mean, I feel like you have so much on the horizon, but is there a creative thing you need to do before you're done?
I think I need to write an opera. Not as a composer, as a librettist, but I do think I need to write an opera, like a big ass opera, like
on the stage at the Metropolitan Opera,
or like at like in Houston, the Houston Grand Opera, or something like that, like a place like a lot of bodies and like just like sound, a fucking giant ass orchestra, and just like something that's like super intense and like in my voice.
Oh,
yes.
That's going to be good. Yes to that.
I just want to say yes to that. And I just want to say yes to that. Yes.
Yeah. It's something I really want to do. And there's a lot of, there's like composers that I really admire and, and who knows, like, but I'm into that level of emotion and like creating something that I think could be really, really cool and like pushes the form and all that stuff.
Yes. On behalf of all of us, I say yes.
Yes, I second that yes with another yes. Michael, you've been in the creativity business for quite some time now. Can you give us some good creative advice?
The best creative advice I can give anybody is to have more questions than they have answers, and to take that questioning into whatever it is that they're working on. There's too much art out there for me that just feels like really partisan and sort of like already knows what it believes. I want to see an artist grappling with what they believe and what they see and like helping us have a lens into that inquiry and that questioning.
Is there anything that you have seen recently that you're like, that has questioning, that lets us enter into that questioning?
I haven't seen anything in so long now. I'm like,
well, that's
the only thing that I can like think of, I know this isn't like the last thing, but it's the only thing I can think of right now is Jordan E. Cooper's play Ain't No Mo, which I thoroughly enjoyed it and just thought it was just like the greatest.
But you felt like it asked the questions, and
I think it did
more questions than answers.
I think it did.
Great.
I like that. That's good advice.
A question that we like to contemplate is, what's it all for?
It's for all of us. Community is for, theater is about all of us. Theater brings people together, and to see a shared experience, for us to see the truth of life, and to see things through the eyes of the artists, and the artists making it on stage. So it's for all of us. That's like, at this moment in time, like, I want to go back to the theater so that we all can be together to share an experience that can energize us, to take us back out into the streets, to make the changes that we want to see in the world.
I love that. That's a great what's it all for.
Answer.
And finally, Michael, what or who is sparking you these days?
I would say a lot of my like friends and collaborators who I found myself on like late night FaceTime calls with, and you know, and that sort of thing, who are like becoming like my sounding boards and my sort of other community of people during this time of like, particularly this great sort of like theatrical uprising that's happening. It's great to have this other cocoon of people who we can talk about how we feel about that. So that's Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, Liliana Blaine Cruz, who's directing White Girl in Danger, my choreographer from A Strange Loop, who's also working on White Girl in Danger, Raja Feather Kelly, a lot of my cast members from A Strange Loop, Jason Veazey, L. Morgan Lee, John Michael Lyles, John Andrew Morrison, James Jackson Jr., and all the rest of them. Those are the people who, Stephen Brackett, my director, who I love and adore so much, who I feel is one of the most undersung people of all time, along with Raja. They've all been incredible people. My producer, Barbara Whitman, my producer at A Strange Loop, Michael Walkup at Page 73. There's so many. I mean, it's actually so many people. But Natasha Sinha at Signature Theater. These are people who like I'm able to like consistently talk to no matter what, and like and who will be real with me, and who I can be real with them, and like we lift each other up. And I I'm missing many names, but like a lot of these people are like, I just treasure them and their friendship and their colleagueships so much.
That's like living the dream.
It is, and it goes back to what you were saying. Your what's it all for? What you're describing is, whether there's a pandemic or not, it's about community, and it's about getting to come together with people who you can have an exchange of ideas with, who can lift each other up, even especially when times are challenging. I love that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's beautiful.
A real gift to be surrounded by people who spark you and inspire you. We want to say thank you so much for being our guest today, Michael Jackson.
Thank you. I really love talking to you.
You are a gift to the theater.
Thank you.
We hope this put another bunch of sparks in your file. If there is a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and you've fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share that, we would like to celebrate you. You can email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We will even happily take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you have to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
And be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe, rate, 5-star review it. If you like this podcast, share it with people you love. If you didn't like it, I don't know, Michael. What do you say to your critics?
I say, suck my dick.
Yes, always in good taste. Yes.
If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, we are writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You got to embroidery hoop it, or take a chicken and soup it. You got to make your way to make a play with music, then strangely loop it.
You got to take it
and make it. We love you, Michael Jackson. We love the things you make in the world.
I love you too. Thank you.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I wanna make or how I wanna be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.